Should we talk about the war on dogs? Also sparked by the BBC. A BBC video report has gone viral, which asks, are we becoming too dog-friendly as a country? BBC Wales has also produced an article where it interviewed various people who have fears of dogs. So they say they can't go out in public because there's too many dogs everywhere. There's dogs in all the cafes. There's dogs in all the parks. There's dogs wherever you go. Now, I think people are right to raise an eyebrow at this because it was only recently where the actual British government, via DEFRA, put out a report saying that the countryside is too white, and one way to diversify it would be to have fewer dogs, because there's a certain religion that doesn't take kindly to dogs. They never spell this out explicitly, but we all know what it's about. The Welsh government as well, one of their reports into as part of becoming an anti-racist country by 2030 says we need fewer dogs out of respect for Muslims. I mean, we don't know that the BBC was necessarily thinking about Muslims, but it was quite interesting that they didn't mention it at all. I don't. The absence, it told its own story in a way. Tom, what have you made of it?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be framed largely around kind of people who are scared of dogs and sort of hypochondriacs more broadly. But this has come up before. I mean, I remember when DEFRA launched that plan to make the countryside more inclusive. It was being talked up even by sort of Labour outriders as something which would be to encourage more Muslims to go to the countryside. So that was, I guess, part of the subplot there. So it's a kind of heady mixture of the preoccupations of polite society, I suppose, one of which is supposed inclusion, even at the cost of things that the majority of the population actually hold quite keenly to in relation to animals and dogs in particular. And also just the willingness to indulge neuroticism and reshape society around that. So I think with the dogs question, you've got those two things crashing together.
Yeah, Ella, what you've made it. You're not keen on dogs, are you?
I'm with you, brothers. Ban the dogs. I hate dogs. I hate dog people. But
there's everyone switching off.
Conscious of the fact that that will make me both unpopular and, there's not many people who are like that with me. I mean, I live in Hackney, so
London has become a bit too dog friendly, I think. This is not the countryside.
It's also the wrong kind of dogs. Yeah. It's like little yappy dogs, not.
Get a proper dog.
For a whole other podcast, I think we do have a problem with the blurring between animals and humans, particularly in Hackney cafes. But the fact that if you the sort of English pastoral countryside thing that the DEFRA and government is attacking as uninclusive, has an identity. It's the sort of dog walking, out in the fields thing that people in this country like, and very much, this Englishman's home is his castle with a dog by his side. It's part of English identity. Dogs are and have been for a long time. And the idea that would have to change to be inclusive is ridiculous. And it's also, I mean, these things can be confected. That it's not necessary. I just don't actually believe that it's true that Muslim families' number one desire to, the thing that's stopping them from going to the Lake District is dogs everywhere. Yeah. I just don't think that's true. I think it's a sort of fever dream of often the often white campaigners in DEFRA also that are trying to find ways to either make headlines or make work for themselves. But I think, even despite my absolute genuine hatred for dogs, I mean, really, really, really hate them, I would defend people's right to walk them if it's a case of refusing to be inclusive. We don't have to be inclusive all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It does seem to be you can almost pluck any pastime or hobby or something people enjoy out of the air and say, well, that's got to change because, white English people like it. You think about the English or British flag. It's the most inoffensive thing in the world, but the wrong kind of people wave it, so we better tear them all down and replace them with the rainbow flags or Palestine flags or something.
Especially where multiculturalism is concerned, I think what this is an example of is the narrative is that the majority have to give certain things up, even if they hold them quite dearly, in order to accommodate, or at least in the minds of the officials and the mandarins drawing up these paternalistic policies, the newcomers. And that's something which seems almost designed to gin up sense of anger, and with the policies and a sense of genuine division. And it's interesting, I think we talked about this last time, the perennial is the countryside racist debate flared up. It seems to be at least every 6 weeks now. Is that the language has shifted as well in a way that seems really divisive, because it's not even a kind of over-the-top discussion about how the countryside is actually really discriminatory in XYZ fashion and those barriers should be removed, often probably vastly exaggerating such barriers. I mean, there's a lot of many quite prosaic reasons why ethnic minorities don't tend to go to the countryside. Most of them live in cities, for example, and tend to go back to their countries of origin when they've got a bit of time and money to go on holiday. There's some quite obvious reasons why that's the case, rather than them just being terrified by either the locals or their canine companions as soon as they show up. So you've got that, but then the language has now become, it's not that the countryside is even racist or discriminatory, or it's that it's too white. That again is an interesting sort of linguistic shift that we've seen, which seems almost designed to cause a backlash and to look quite unpleasant.
Yeah, and I agree with your point, Ella, that I don't believe that there is actually a huge demand from ordinary Muslims, maybe some wacko Islamists, to get rid of dogs, and in the same way that actually most ethnic minority people are not terrified of the British flag. It is the woke civil servants in Whitehall or in the local council or whatever who think the British flag is disgraceful, whereas actually minorities most of the time actually would probably quite like to live in a country that has a sense of itself, that's patriotic. There's a reason people come to the UK, because they like a lot of the customs and way of life here and traditions
and things that I'm thinking about what sort of unique Morris dancing comes to mind. Something like that, which you might countryside, weird English tradition. The idea that these things should be made more inclusive would like sap them of all their uniqueness and interest. There's this sort of like very sort of beige approach to culture that's just everything has to be leveled out so that it's and inclusive to me basically ends up sounding like boring, like it's lost any of its uniqueness, or the idea that you would have to be able to enjoy a tradition, you would have to be able to like participate in it rather than being a spectator. The idea that you'd have to like decolonize Morris dancing or make the countryside dog free so that Muslims could go. Any of this it's just such a silly response to inclusion. Inclusion doesn't have to, genuine inclusion and integration and cultural sharing doesn't have to mean just leveling everything out to some sort of a boring indistinction.
Yeah, and I don't know if Morris dancing's been decolonized yet, but the BBC certainly has done a lot of coverage to the non-binary and trans-inclusive Morris dancing troops. So, keep paying your license fee.
I also hate Morris dancing. FYI, so, yeah.
I think, I'm not sure there's many fans of it left.